Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Ray Tampa podcast. Our podcast is new, our podcast is bold, and truth is our guiding principle. But political correctness is out the door. We will tell it like it is. My name is Ray Tampa, and I'm the host of the Ray Tampa podcast. We have in our studio two talented and intelligent co-hosts, Mr. Russell Cato and Mr. Jamie Wilson III. Before we move any further, I would like to ask Russ to join me, and you, the listeners, can join in as well in offering our heartfelt condolences to Mr. Jamie Wilson III and his entire family on the loss of his dad on yesterday. Certainly, Jay, we offer our prayers, our blessings to you and the family.
Thank you.
This evening, we're going to discuss our good fortune, as some might say. To have so many elected and appointed officials that look like us in St. Petersburg and Pinellas County. We're going to tackle the subject of whether they are of benefit to us. They look like us, are they of benefit to us? I'm going to read an article I wrote, and my co-host and I will engage in a lively discussion based on the article. The title of the article, African American Leaders Aplenty. Who benefits? Here's the article. My co-host and I were all born and raised right here in St. Petersburg, Florida. Collectively, we have over 209 years of existence here in the city. Two of us are retired educators, and the third team member has over 20 years as a healthcare provider. We know lots of people, and we've seen lots of things. We feel very confident having this discussion about our community and the people representing us in terms of elected offices and appointed offices. To begin, we're going to identify all the African Americans occupying the various positions of leadership and offer residents a set of metrics to use in assessing how our leaders are performing. The metrics are as follows. Number one, is the person visible in the community? Number two, does the person have great communication skills? Number three, does the person communicate regularly with their constituencies? Number four, is the person responsive to their constituents? Number five, does the person advocate for the things or the issues of importance to the community? Number six, does the person make himself, herself available to meet with constituents of all socioeconomic groups? Number seven, does the person realize that St. Petersburg is much more than a collection of sorority sisters and fraternity brothers? Number eight, has this person advocated positions or policies of significance to the community or to the minority communities of St. Petersburg? St. Petersburg is fortunate to have so many African Americans in positions of authority. However, At the end of the day, the question remains, who benefits? Please take note of the following list of elected and or appointed African-American leaders in our community. Number 1, Darrell Rousson, State Senator. Number 2, Michelle Rayner, State Representative. Number 3, Renee Flowers, County Commissioner. Number 4, Caprice Edmonds, School Board Member. Number 5, Dr. Cynthia Johnson, Director of Economic Development, Pinellas County. Number 6, Ken Welch, Mayor, St. Petersburg. Number 7, Stephanie Owens, Deputy Mayor, St. Petersburg, resigned. Number 8, Lisa Willa Bowman, Councilwoman, St. Petersburg, resigned. Number 9, Deborah Figg Sanders, Councilwoman, St. Petersburg. Number 10, Richard Floyd, Councilman, St. Petersburg. Number 11, Anthony Holloway, Chief of Police, St. Petersburg. Luke Williams, Chief of Police, Pinellas Schools. And number 13, Dr. Tanya Williams, President, St. Petersburg College. Generally, we know all of the individuals identified above. They're all good people. They're all well-educated individuals. But how do they rate based on our metrics identified earlier? We feel that the residents of St. Petersburg are quite informed as to who's representing their best interests. The residents know quite well who it is that they see throughout the community. Also, the residents know quite well who they feel comfortable talking to about their concerns, or more importantly, who it is they can even get a chance to talk to about their concerns. Furthermore, we know that some of the people on this list utilize social media platforms often and effectively, while others hardly use social media at all. But social media aside, there are old-fashioned strategies that are still effective in serving as responsible leaders, such as the following. Number 1, returning constituent phone calls, personally or by a staff member. Number 2, attending community events. Number 3, visiting different church services regularly. Number 4, patronizing many businesses throughout the community. Number 5, enrolling kids in the local public schools and supporting the schools. Number 6, extending cordial greetings to people in public. Number 7, demonstrating compassion for victims and their families of violent crimes. Number 8, holding community forums of interest to residents. And number 9, etc., etc., etc. Residents should ask themselves, are we seeing any of this? Are we seeing any of this? Accountability, accountability, accountability has to be on the minds of all St. Petersburg residents. If not, we will continue getting what we've always gotten, whatever that is. As a side note, and for transparency, I read this article to a couple of the individuals identified on the list more than a month ago to get their opinions. they did not have any problems with the article. They both offered candid responses that were positive. Thank you. So at this point, I'm going to ask my co-host to let's get it done in terms of discussing this article and trying to come up with some comments about our elected and appointed leadership in St. Petersburg. What you say, Russ?
It's a very good article that you have done. But you know, Ray, I'm always thinking, I look at groups of people like this and all this political power, be it black or white. I think the thing that bothers me, do these people meet as a black caucus to look at problems of this community? See, I do not know.
Good.
Good
know.
point.
Yeah, good point.
Good point.
I don't know.
Do they meet as a caucus
Yes.
to discuss issues and concerns?
Yes.
Good point. Good point. What you say, Jay?
We have a lot of underserved areas here and issues of disparities, and that's the South. That's the South side of St. Pete. And true enough, based on a lot of things you say are very true. It needs to be like a clear understanding of the responsibilities of these elected, who's accountable or who's responsible for certain areas. And, you know, a lot of our older people, some people just not into computers, social media, this, that, and the other. And no, it's not enough visits to the church or in the communities, but it needs to be so they know who's responsible for what. It's just in layman's terms, you know, of these elected officials. If it was just something like a handout or something, because a lot of them don't. And there are some that just go, oh, nothing's going to get done anyway. But as officials, they need to visit these areas that's underserved. Like they need to be seen more, you know, and talk to the people, because a lot of areas on the north side, they're good. You know, we have, you know, I was looking some years back when they put like 9th Street and 16th Street. They put the little planters in the center of the street. You know, that's supposed to be for beautification or whatever. Or if they're chasing somebody, it'd make it hard to put them a zigzag across the street.
Right.
They could be caught. That's what I first thought. But things like that, it needs to be like real stuff, like real issues that are addressed. You know what I mean? Putting those planners out there, yeah, okay. For what's the purpose? But yeah, we got infrastructure issues. We got, you know, so many issues. We need, you know, keeping crime down, all that stuff. We got like real issues, you know, people that are not eating. You know, we have real issues, and that needs to be addressed. And the people need to know in the simplest form who to reach out to, who's accountable for this. You know, even if it's a pamphlet, this elected official does this, because everybody's not on the computer. You know, they're not, you know, they're not that savvy. We need to make it easier for them.
Russ, you had something?
Yeah, I work at Frank Pierce, and one of the problems that we have in that Frank Pierce is really a community problem. And what it is, it's the homeless. Now, I'm not down on the homeless people. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
They need some place to go. They need to be taken care of.
Right.
But what is happening at the center is that these people is finding a place to live. And by finding a place to live, they are causing us some serious problems. In other words, they're taking up our space, our play area space, because we're finding drug use, defecation, and all this kind of stuff. Now, my boss is white. She has made every attempt to alleviate this problem. She has called the police department, but Ray, we don't get it. It's not there. So here's what I'm saying. When I look at these leaders, I use two words here, perception and hypocrisy. That's what I look at here.
Perception and hypocrisy.
Yes.
And what's the perception of these leaders?
The perception is, in our area, okay, kiddo, it's a black area. So what are you talking about? You
Okay.
see, that's the perception.
Right.
And then the hypocrisy is, if we are putting these leaders in by votes, and I go back to what Don Lemon says, the best way to deal with, to get rid of racism is through legislation.
Right,
Mhm.
correct.
So when we put these people in, and they are put in, if you look at it, they are put in by black votes, the majority of black votes,
Mhm.
they are being put in.
Right.
So if that is the case, that is the true case, which it is, then we need help from these people.
Right.
I want to go back,
Accountable.
yeah, accountable.
Mhm.
And I want to go back to what you said about perception.
Yeah.
Because it's a black area,
Yeah.
the services are lessened
Right,
as
yes,
opposed to the white area,
underserved.
underserved.
Mhm.
And this is a very valid point because on the south side of St. Petersburg, we have the largest lake
Yes.
in St. Petersburg,
Mhm.
Lake Magori.
Yeah.
At one time, Lake Magori was pristine.
Right,
Lake Magori was used for boat races.
right,
A lot of people went to Lake Magori to fish, to crab. They loved Lake Magori. Property values were reflected in the beauty of that
that is
lake.
correct.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But Lake Magori, as of late, has been horrible.
Right,
5 years ago, I wrote an article. And in my article, I made a statement. Lake Magori is in such bad shape, the alligators don't even want to stay there. The alligators don't even want to stay there. And the weeds, you can't even see the lake as you're driving north or south along Dr. Martin Luther King Street. It does not make sense.
Right.
But that's not perception, that's fact.
That's fact, always.
That's fact. But then the perception could be, well, it's not getting the attention it should get because it's on the south side of St. Pete.
And that's unacceptable. That's
Unacceptable.
unacceptable. And so when we elect these people, they need to be held accountable. If there's whatever the issue is, if that's their responsibility, they need to be held accountable all term, not just kissing babies and being seen when you're running. I mean, you need to, and it needs to be a vehicle to where you can reach out and get, as you said, the staff or the individual himself, whether it be calls, letters, church invitations, emails, postcards, whatever. You need, this needs to be done your entire term. Like, for instance, if you're reading something in the paper that affects St. Pete, in the news, you need to be able to reach out and say, I have a problem with this, whether it be senator or congressman or whoever, and you need to know, like, what action can you take to prevent this or stop this or improve this? It needs to be that type of communication. And that's what the citizens, they need to, a lot of citizens don't know how to do that. They don't know the steps. They sit amongst each other and argue and, badmouth this person, that person, but what are you going to do about it? You need an action step. They need to know an action step, like how to. That's what needs to be taught in our community, like how to. Not just talking about it under the tree with your friends or at work or on the bus or wherever you're at. What is the action plan? How do these regular people, how do you do that to get the word out? You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean. And I
Yeah.
want to make this point. These individuals, whether again, they're in appointed positions or elected positions,
Mhm.
they're in a position to help
Right,
the residents. They're in a position to serve
right,
the residents.
right.
I take, for instance, this radio station. This radio station is a community resource.
Correct.
It's a valuable community resource. But we got all these elected officials and all these other individuals in our community that are not stepping up to the plate.
Using this platform.
They're not stepping up to the plate
Right.
to lend support
Mhm.
to this resource.
Mhm.
I'll make another point. Pastor Carl Mobley, he really wanted to come on this show today. But I let him know that this is not the format at this point for us to have guests. But he said, but Ray, you know my situation and you have my permission to share it with the audience. Well, Pastor Carl Mobley has been trying for months and months to get help from City Hall because his congregation, they haven't been in a facility to have church services in over 2 years. The church itself is dilapidated. The roof is in need of repairing. The walls are about to crumble. And he has a potential buyer of the property who would allow him to use those funds to go and get himself another facility to conduct church services. But he has not been able to get the support from City Hall to make that happen. These are supposed to be leaders serving the community, helping individuals that need help, and it's just not happening. Russ?
Underserved.
Yeah. You know, I want to go back and look at your criteria here, and I think what scares me when people become elected leaders and get in position, this, to me, they got to understand this is public now. You got to lead your private life. You know, you
Say that again. It's
yeah,
public?
It's public. You got to lead. Their private life is over for you.
Okay.
It's over. So let's go back to what you're saying, visiting, going in the right place. Beautiful parlors, barbershops, those kind of things are the nucleus of our community, Jimmy.
Right.
That's where we are.
Right.
On Sunday on the church, we got to go there. Like you said, I'm looking at your criteria here. Where have we gone wrong with these? That's what I want to know.
Yeah,
Well,
you're right.
all of these positions could easily be occupied by Caucasians or others.
Yeah.
The mayor could easily be, as it has always been prior to now, a Caucasian person. The chief of police could easily be a Caucasian person. The city council members could easily be Caucasian. The county commissioner could easily be Caucasian. St. Petersburg College president could easily be, as it has always been, Caucasian. And the list goes on and on and on. But it is not Caucasian at this point.
Right,
These are African Americans.
exactly.
We need them to step up
Right,
and help
right,
people such as Don Jackson at 99.1 FM, The Bird.
right.
This is a community resource.
Use
St.
it,
Pete College, throw some ads this way.
fund it, use it.
City of St. Petersburg, throw some ads this way. As far as Pastor Carl Mobley, like I said, he wanted to come here today. But I told him that's not the way we work. So he said, Ray, you know the issues. Please share the issues with the audience for me. He should not be begging
No.
and crying for support in terms of his congregation. It's not a congregation that has the resources to put a $30,000 roof on a building that's dilapidated. But he got a man over on the sidelines who has already tendered a contract of over $1 million to buy the property.
But you see, Ray, what you're saying here. If you look at these 13, I'm just gonna, this is the 13.
Right.
And compact them together. Look what they can do.
Ooh, Lord.
Right,
You see what I'm talking about?
Look what they can do.
Yes.
Look what
Right.
they can do if they compact
Yeah.
themselves
Right.
together to look at the problem. You see, in 1971, that's what the black people did in the federal government, the Black Caucus. They saw this coming. So we got to unite black
right,
political people together.
right.
Russ, hold that point, and I want the audience, if they can see this.
Yeah.
This article is an article that inspired me to write the article that I read.
Yeah.
And I'm going to share this a little with the audience because of what you just said.
Right,
This article says, meet the corporate leaders with the bold plan to hire 1 million black people. And the black people they're focusing on are the non-degree
Yes.
black
Good.
people
Yeah.
who are
Very good.
struggling
right,
to make a living wage.
Yeah.
right,
These people, these are African-American
yeah,
people who have occupied
Yeah.
very significant positions in the business world.
Right.
And they have come together to do something bold.
Yes.
Going back to what you said, Russ, do the Black leaders locally, do they caucus?
I don't know.
They should.
Okay.
That's a great idea.
I don't know.
That is a great idea. And you know, like talking about the Black leaders, a lot of them are from here. You know the issue. You know what's going on. Don't get elected and hide. You know what's going on, especially the south side of St. Pete. You know what's going on. You guys really need to step up. Like, step up, be heard, be seen, but be effective. Be effective, because we need that. We really need that.
Well, let me say this in response to that. And I want them to understand, this is really not attacking them.
No, it's
No,
not
no,
an attack.
no,
It's
no,
not an
it's
attack, right?
No,
We just need some help.
We need to step up. We got a lot of Black people in power, in office. We need you to step up. That's all I'm saying. We need to step up.
it is not an attack.
No,
And as I indicated, I read this to two of the people on this list. They didn't feel as though it was an attack. One of the individuals said to me, the only people that will feel bad about it or feel backwards about it are the ones that are not doing what they should be doing.
right. Right,
And
right.
I'm not even looking at the ones that should be doing, other than the fact that they can look at the metrics and judge for themselves.
Right.
Am I visible in the community? Am I communicating with people in the community? Am I attending events in the community?
Right,
Am I returning phone calls from people in the community?
right.
Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Gentlemen,
Oh,
okay, Jay, one more
I
point.
just want to say, and it may come a time if you're not doing your job, it may feel like an attack, and it may be an attack. So if you're doing what you're supposed to do, you don't have any worries.
Sure.
Good point. Russ, one last point.
I'm gonna ride on what James said. Yeah, don't feel like it's an attack, because if
Yes.
you're doing your job, it's not.
Right,
an attack.
right,
Just doing your
right.
job.
Well, I think it's very, very admirable of all of these individuals in this article,
Mhm.
these former chief executive officers, chief financial officers of Fortune 500 companies
Mhm.
coming together to meet a problem in the total community. Let's find a way to hire 1 million African Americans who are non-degree in an effort for these people to afford to take care of their families.
Right.
Oh, I like that.
I like
Right.
that
I
too.
like that.
Well,
See,
once again, I say to my co-hosts, thank you, thank you, thank you. It's always a pleasure having these discussions with the two of you. Very important discussion. I want to say to our listening audience, thank you for tuning in to 99.1 FM, The Bird, and ask that you do so each and every Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. This is the Ray Tampa Podcast. You can get to our podcast, the various shows we've done, by logging in to YouTube, the Ray Tampa Podcast. You can also visit the Weekly Challenger newspaper and take a look at some of the articles that we have as a result of our podcast. And I would like to say to each and every one of you, sponsors are
Yes,
welcome.
yes, sponsors are welcome.
Sponsors are welcome. This is the hottest political podcast in all of Florida. Good evening.